Salon, Atlanta. What an absolute honor to be in the virtual company of our esteemed panel today. Jewish Democratic Women's Salon has always emphasized that while we only get the privilege of voting for our own U.S. district representative, when these history-making women get to Washington, they will represent all of us. And that means that we must all find ways to support them beyond just voting. We're here today to do just that. We'll lend support to our candidates with the greatest gift we have, the gift of our time. If there is a lesson to be learned from COVID, it's that this disease has always been about understanding that what affects one of us affects all of us. In a bizarre twist, the same can also be said of our U.S. congressional representatives. When politics works the way it should, a caring and compassionate and wise and thoughtful candidate for U.S. representative has the capacity to affect many. And today we have 4 women who meet that standard and more. So allow me to introduce the next history-making, all-female slate of Democratic candidates from Greater Atlanta. Georgia State Senator Nikema Williams from the 5th Congressional District, Representative Lucy McBath from the 6th Congressional District, Dr. Carolyn Bourdeaux from the 7th Congressional District, and Dana Barrett from the 11th Congressional District. We are going to begin today's program by giving all of our guests a chance to better get to know these candidates. And after we've heard from each of them, we will enthusiastically separate into Zoom breakout rooms and phone bank within their districts to help them get out the vote. Research shows that these calls are the single most important thing that we can do at this point in the campaign. In fact, the calls that you are going to make today can be expected to increase the turnout among called voters by as much as 3%. I know everyone here today gets that this election is ultimately about voter turnout. So on behalf of everyone here, we are excited to have the opportunity to make this very meaningful campaign contribution to each of our candidates. Our attendees will be divided randomly among the Zoom rooms of the 4 candidates. So you won't necessarily be dialing on behalf of your own candidate. But again, that's because what affects one of us affects all of us, and we are most decidedly better together. Let's begin by allowing each of our distinguished candidates to make a brief 3-minute introduction. And just as a reminder to our candidates, remember to unmute. We'll start with Dana.
Well, first of all, hi, everybody. And I want to start by thanking the Jewish Democratic Women's Salon for hosting this. And thank you for including me with this incredible slate of candidates, female candidates that we have in the Metro Atlanta area. It is an absolute honor to be included along with Nikema and Lucy and Carolyn. I think everybody probably knows that I'm the underdog in this group. These are a bunch of really experienced, phenomenal women, and I am somebody who never, ever in a million years thought I would be a politician or running for any kind of office ever, full stop, period. But I got into this race for a couple of reasons. And I think, you know, like a lot of us, I got far more activated than I had ever been before when 2016 happened, as I like to call it. But I was doing my job as a talk radio host at that time, you know, studying the national issues and talking about the national issues from the left. And I felt like I was having my impact. And again, never really thought I would run for office. But about 1.5 years ago, maybe more than that now, I moved. And because of the crazy gerrymandering in our state, I landed in this 11th district. I had been living in Lucy's district. I had happily voted for John and then voted for Lucy, and I thought all was well. But I moved a few miles away, landed in 11, took a look at the congressman who was representing me and thought, what? What is this 11th district? Who is this person? How can someone with these views possibly be representing a Metro Atlanta district that is so diverse? It just blew my mind. And I think that's when I really started thinking, okay, there is no safe seat. There should be no safe seat. All seats must be challenged. And this guy has been under the radar for far too long. So, you know, at the highest level, I got into this race because I was already frustrated by what was going on at the national level with our politics, that the divisiveness and, you know, the polarization had just gotten so extreme that nothing was getting done. But when I looked at it more at this micro level in District 11, I had to take a step back also and say, look, I've always believed in a government for the people, by the people. And Barry Loudermilk was not representing all the people in his district. And the more I learn about him, and the more really this year has gone on, the more egregious behavior I keep uncovering about him. I think most people who do know anything about him know that he is as far to the extreme right as you can possibly get in terms of his views on women's reproductive rights, his views on equality, marriage equality. Recently uncovered some writings that he had done years ago that really just show his white nationalist tendencies. He's really a bad guy. And, I got into this race because I truly want to listen to all of the constituents in the district and want everyone to be represented for things like getting healthcare for everyone at an affordable rate, where you choose your own doctors and you can afford your medications, where we fix some of the corruption and craziness that is happening in our government, and where we provide essentially an equal economic opportunity, the right to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in this country for all of us. Those are the reasons I'm in this thing. I know I'm an underdog, but I'm working my butt off to make this happen, and I'm following the lead of some amazing women that are on this call that you're going to hear from next. And those who know me know I can talk all day long, but I know my time is up, so I'm going to pass the torch over to Carolyn, and I'm just thrilled to be here, so thank you.
Carolyn.
Okay, thank you, Dana. And it is so amazing that we have, yes, Dana's a dark horse candidate, but she is phenomenal. And we are fielding these extraordinary candidates up and down the ballot, really all across Georgia. And I have to say, Georgia 6 and Georgia 7 were thought to be unwinnable a couple of years ago. So everybody lean in. We have got work to do here in Georgia. And you are turning people out for Dana. You are turning people out for the 2 Senate races. You are turning people out to put Georgia itself in play for Biden. So what Dana is doing is so important. And I'm so appreciative that she's here. And of course, I'm honored to be here with the Jewish Democratic Women's Salon. I have so appreciated your help as we have really pushed the envelope here in the 7th District. And that is, we are just a hair's breadth away from pushing this district over the line at this point. So just a little about myself. I teach at Georgia State at the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies, and I've really spent my life in public service. I worked for various members of Congress, for U.S. senators. I worked on legislation to expand access to public health clinics and low-income food programs and create needs-based scholarships for young people going to college. I was director of the Senate Budget and Evaluation Office here in Georgia, and was there during the Great Depression. And right now, if you're following the news, right, there's a number of negative ads running against me about that, which is, the Great Recession, I think I said depression. It was the worst crisis since the Great Depression when I was there. And now they're attacking me for this. This was a time of, enormous fiscal crisis for the state. Georgia's revenues dropped by 20% over this period. And, during this time, I worked with the Republican leadership and the Democratic leadership to craft budgets that protected core services and helped create the foundation for a strong recovery. And all of my budgets passed actually by broad and bipartisan majorities. And at the end of my time there, I was honored with a special resolution for significant service to the state of Georgia. So I have been involved in public life, in this area for a long, long time, and been in some of the really toughest spots that anyone can be in the public arena. After doing that, I went back, I founded the Center for State and Local Finance at Georgia State, and have generally been dedicated to good public policy and to bringing along the next generation of leaders in public service. I got into this race for a couple reasons. One is healthcare, and watching the destruction of the Affordable Care Act. And my own parents struggled with healthcare. My father had a debilitating illness for 10 years. My mother took care of him, and all of their discretionary income was used up paying for his prescription medications. And this is something that is not uncommon here in this district and in Georgia. We have 120,000 people in this district alone without health insurance. We pay extortionary rates for health insurance. And so one of my first commitments is to going to Washington and getting our healthcare system back on track, which has become even more important now that we're facing a pandemic. I also got into this race because I woke up on November 9th of 2016 and found out that Donald Trump had been elected president, and probably like most of you, was galvanized to engage in politics in a way that I had just never thought of before. I am not going down this way. I believe in a country that is diverse, inclusive, global in its outlook and aspirations, not the racism, sexism, and anti-immigrant fervor that we see coming out of this current administration. Also, I would say I believe in a government that is run with competence and good management and is not corrupt. And we are seeing now with COVID and coronavirus just how devastating mismanagement and corruption can be as we cross over 210,000 Americans who have died from the pandemic. So I got into this race in July of 2017, and as you know, we closed a 20 percentage point gap, came within 433 votes of flipping this seat, which was the closest race in the country. We fought voter suppression for several weeks before that to get to that final number, and this was ground zero for a lot of the problems that happened here in Georgia. After that, the incumbent decided to retire. I got back into the race. I had a primary in June, on June 9th, and was able to prevail there. But something very, very important happened in that primary. 85,000 people voted in the Democratic primary, up from 30,000 in 2018, and over 50% of those voting had never voted in a Democratic primary before. So we are making extraordinary progress. So we are turning our attention to November, and with God's grace, with your help, we are going to finish the job in this district, and we are going to turn Georgia blue. So thank you guys for being here and for being a part of that.
Thank you, Carolyn. Let's turn it over to Nikema.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nikema Williams, and I currently serve as a Georgia State Senator and the first Black woman to chair the Democratic Party of Georgia. I also have the absolute honor to serve as the Democratic nominee for Georgia's 5th Congressional District to continue the legacy of my hero, my friend, and mentor, Congressman John Lewis. I'm excited about being here today and being a part of this event and you volunteering your time to help all of us win, because I feel like the Democratic Jewish Women's Salon is family. I've been with you guys on many occasions as we fought against so many attacks. But like many of you, I've spent the last few months mourning the loss of our dear friend, Congressman John Lewis. We lost a true American hero and to so many, he was a very personal friend. I see some people on the phone like Sherry Frank, and I know how hard this hit all of us, Sherry. But in Congress, I need you to remember that nobody can ever fill Congressman Lewis's shoes. But I'm going to draw from his inspiration, his leadership, and his fighting spirit, because y'all, we need it now more than ever in this country. I want you to know that I know what so many American families are going through right now because I've lived it. I grew up in rural Alabama in a home with no indoor plumbing and no running water. Some of my earliest memories are driving around in the back of my grandpa's pickup truck and dropping off slate cards so that our neighbors knew exactly who to vote for. Spoiler alert, they were all Democrats. But little did I know the impact that this community outreach and my family's values around the importance of voting would have on my life. I grew up reading textbooks that spoke about my great aunt Autherine Lucy as she became the first Black student admitted to the University of Alabama. And this ingrained into me a sense of standing up to injustice and demanding equal and fair treatment. In high school, I was a proud union member of UFCW as a cashier at a grocery store, and that job got me through college. And then I went on to attend Talladega College and HBCU in Alabama, where I became a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, just like our next vice president, Kamala Harris. I remember the very first time that I heard about the city of Atlanta. I was always told that this is where people who look like me are afforded an opportunity to thrive and not just survive. And I'm honored to say that I found that. I spent 10 years working as the VP of Public Policy for Planned Parenthood Southeast. And then in 2017, I ran for the Georgia State Senate in District 39. I spoke out against our unconstitutional abortion ban, fought to fully fund our schools, expand access to health care, and sponsored legislation to eradicate all forms of race-based hair discrimination in the workplace. And then last year, I launched my bid to become the first Black woman ever to chair the Democratic Party of Georgia. But nothing stands out to me more than November 13, when I actually lived out the meaning of good trouble and was arrested for standing with my constituents and speaking out, demanding that every vote be counted after the disastrous 2018 gubernatorial election. I was taken out of the Capitol, where I served in the state Senate, with zip ties on my hands and booked into the Fulton County Jail simply for standing with my constituents. Y'all, this should not have happened. Voter suppression is real and is continuing to happen today. But with just 23 days until November 3rd, we know how much is at stake. We're literally fighting for the promise of our country, and this election is the most consequential of our lifetimes. In November, our right to choose, our right to cast a ballot, and access to health care and taking action on climate change are all on the ballot. We must vote like all of this depends on it, because it actually does. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. I look forward to answering your questions later on, and I look forward to working with you as we continue to fight for the promise of America for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikema. You inspire all of us. Is Lucy on the call?
She should be hopping on shortly.
All right, I will, we will go ahead and move on. And when Lucy gets here,
right,
somebody will let me know. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm so sorry. I saw something pop up. Is that Lucy joining right this sec? No?
No, that was
okay. All right. Okay. Thank you to all of our candidates, and Lucy will be with us shortly. As you all heard, our candidates had us at hello. Our time is short because we want to leave plenty of time for our attendees to phone bank. But we wanted to ask each of our candidates to comment briefly about the specifics of some of the change that they will bring to Washington. So we're going to come back to Lucy, and I'm going to go ahead and move to Carolyn. Carolyn, I know you have tremendous policy making experience. You referred to that in your opening remarks. How will you protect healthcare access in a world where Republicans are trying so hard to tear down the Affordable Care Act?
So as I mentioned, yes, this is one of the reasons I got into this race. Watching the destruction of the Affordable Care Act is physically painful for me as a policy person, and was, until COVID, one of the most staggering pieces of policy malpractice I had ever seen. The Affordable Care Act was an important effort to make sure that everyone had quality, affordable health care. But what happened after it passed was that the Republicans failed to fund parts of it. The bill was fully funded, but they didn't reappropriate the money to help support the exchange, to make sure our health insurance was affordable. They have litigated against it, and of course today are bringing litigation before the Supreme Court. This is President Trump, joined by the Attorney General of Georgia, and with the full-throated support of everybody in the Republican Party, to bring down the Affordable Care Act in its entirety. And that includes protections for pre-existing conditions. Now, I find it ironic that all of a sudden, I guess the Republicans have gotten some polling data that has showed that, oh, wait, healthcare is an important issue to people. And so they're out there talking about how, wait, I am for every affordable quality healthcare. But there is not one shred of evidence that they are going to do anything to help us achieve that end. You know, they have had at least 4 years, but I would say actually decades to address this issue, and they really have not in any kind of meaningful way. So we have to take it seriously that they are bringing down the Affordable Care Act in its entirety, and that includes coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. That includes the provision that allows young people to stay on their parents' health insurance until they're 26. That includes provisions to keep you know, older Americans from being priced out of the market. And all of those things are at stake now in ways that are really frightening. What I believe is we should go back, obviously reinstate the Affordable Care Act. It was a piece of legislation that's worked very successfully in states like Massachusetts. But then we need to go further, and we need to introduce a public option to the exchange so that individuals and small businesses have an affordable option for them to opt into. And with that, I think we can absolutely get to a place where everyone in this country has affordable quality healthcare.
Thank you, Carolyn. We're counting on you. Nikema, President Trump has recently nominated Amy Coney Barrett to be our next Supreme Court Justice. It's clear to all of us that she will be a threat to reproductive justice in our country. Can you share with us what you will do in Congress to protect a woman's right to choose?
Thank you, Valerie. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, I spent 10 years of my professional career with Planned Parenthood doing advocacy and policy work. And probably the hardest states in this country to do this work, Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi. And so I've always stood on the front line for women. In Congress, we need to make sure that we codify Roe. It should not be left up to individual states if a woman will have access to healthcare when and if she needs it. We should leave these decisions up to a woman and her doctor and her God, and our government should not be involved in it. So I want to make sure that we codify Roe v. Wade, and it is not left up to the courts to decide if a woman has access to healthcare. And my track record, I think you all know that I'm going to be calling on you to stand with me, because we're gonna fight back against this, y'all.
Thank you, Nikema. We are going to fight with you. Dana, you entered your race for the 11th against a well-funded incumbent. I'm curious about your thoughts on how we can reform the campaign finance system and help bring the public further into the political process.
It's a great question. And it's so interesting because listening to Carolyn talk about healthcare and Nikema talk about women's reproductive rights, which, by the way, I am 100% in agreement on both of those issues, but I always come back to, and I used to do this on my radio show all the time, to how campaigns are funded, because at the end of the day, we, the people, are not having our say because corporations and special interests are paying for candidates. And as long as that continues, we won't make the progress we need. I mean, if you take my district as an example, Barry Loudermilk is funded by the insurance industry. So he's never going to vote for anything that in his mind hurts the insurance industry. He'll put his people at risk because he needs the money from that, from those corporations in order to continue to be to be the congressman. So we have got to make changes here. I mean, people have been talking about ending Citizens United for a long time to get corporate money out of this political game. And it is really, it's the least sexy probably of all the topics. It's not top of mind for a lot of people, but I think it's the root cause of us not being able to get so many other things done. And to come back to your question about Loudermilk and him being well-funded, I mean, this is always one of the things that's going to happen with the way Democrats are holding themselves to a higher standard right now and saying, no, I'm not going to take corporate money. You have, in my case, for example, I'm raising all of my money from individuals, and so he can make one phone call and get a $5,000 investment from a corporation in 2 seconds because they know he's going to do their bidding. And it can take me weeks, in $5 and $10 and $20 and $50 donations to catch up. And so if you're a challenger like me, you start at a deficit because they've already got money in the bank, and then you come in and you're behind because all they've got to do is make those single calls to corporations to bridge the gap. And of course, I don't know if everyone really thinks about this, but that money, most voters are not like you all. So first of all, you all are amazing because you're engaged and you care and you are knowledgeable about the issues and about your candidates. But most voters don't. They hear a commercial, they see a yard sign or a billboard or a negative ad or a mailer, and that's how they make their decision. And all of those things cost money. So we've got to fix this system and level the playing field.
Thank you, Dana. Great news. The best things in life are worth waiting for, and Lucy McBath is with us. Lucy, welcome. What you missed was your introductory remarks, so we're going to let you combine them with your question, because that's what we just finished. What you missed is that each one of our candidates took a question. So I'm going to throw out your question and let you combine it with your introduction. As the only sitting Congresswoman in among our panel, we know the rules are different for women, and especially women of color in politics. Can you share with us some of the challenges that you've experienced as a woman in Congress? I know you were planning to do that anyway, but Lucy, take it away.
Thank you so much, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. Thank you so much. My schedule's been very hectic today. But of course, when I said that I was going to flip from the House District 37 seat to the federal, looked at me like, with deer with headlights, like, what, are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? You tell us that you've had no political experience before. You've never you've never had a campaign before. You've never run for office. I even had some people say, you were just a flight attendant. What do you know about business? What do you know about politics? What do you know about Washington? What they said to me is that you're running on a platform of guns. In Ruby Red, Georgia, that is political suicide. Do you know whose seat you're trying to run after? Newt Gingrich's seat. We've not had a Democrat hold this seat since what, 1979? This is political suicide. And yes, I even had women say those things to me. I had women tell me, wait my turn, wait till the numbers are better, wait a couple of years. And I think that's something that women are always hearing. And I'm so glad that I didn't pay attention to any of the naysayers, and I decided to run for the seat because I know that all of the relative experiences that I've had in my life gave me great credibility to be able to speak truth to power in Washington, and that's what I've done. And I'm really excited about every woman that decides to take all of her relative experience, everything that she's done is, in the workforce, that she's done for her families and her communities, and put that to use. We are smart enough. We have enough intellect. We have enough to do the job, to get it done. We are the central focus, not only of our families, but in our communities. We're community leaders. We take those relative experiences, we take them to Washington, and we put them to use. So I am always going to be one to say that a woman should have a seat at the table. And I'm so glad to see that we are bringing our own chairs now.
Thank you, Lucy. And thank you to this truly incredible slate of candidates who remind each of us of the power of women to change the world. And we all know this world of ours needs quite a bit of improvement. We wish we had more time to chat, but as much as it was a treat to hear from each of you, it's the next part of this afternoon's program that really gives us pleasure. We're asking all of our participants, and we have 100 folks on this call, to keep their seat. In just a few moments, and with Star Wars speed, we're going to beam each of you into a breakout room where you will join a campaign member to begin phone banking for one of these districts. We'll be making calls to help get out the vote. We hope you have so much fun with this effort that you'll register to do this again in the brief time that remains before Election Day. We are counting on you. With this effort, we are each of us declaring ourselves to be a part of this powerhouse team of women. We are the team that will proudly send these women to Washington to represent our greater Atlanta community. We are divided by districts, but we are united by community. Thank you again to our candidates, and Kyra, beam us up.